practice of theological imagination, in which we dare to dream of a world we have not yet seen, but what we believe is possible and inevitable if we are willing to do our part in creating it. A beautiful reality in which every person has what they need to flourish and thrive. And that includes every person having access to compassionate abortion care without shame or stigma or barriers. Abortion is a blessing, and it's time that we honor that truth with our words and our actions. May we practice the discipline of hope that guides our work for a more just and compassionate world.
Good morning, Reverend CJ Brenson. I am the Black Constituency Organizer with Down Home, North Carolina. I'm going to try to do this in 2 minutes. I'm a Black Baptist preacher, but happy to be here with all of you today. Today, we are excited to stand here in solidarity to issue a notice on right-wing evangelicalism and white Christian nationalism in the state of North Carolina. It is not by chance that we are here today on what would have been the anniversary of Roe versus Wade. And it pains us to report that because of religious extremism, abortion, which is a healthcare issue for women, is under the threat of being restricted by legislative bodies held in majority by men here in this state. As faith leaders, we can no longer allow this misrepresentation of God and also this misrepresentation of Jesus. We stand here today to represent a counter-narrative. Over 60% of Black Protestants and Hindus support abortion access. 80% of Buddhists and Jews, 50% of Catholics, 60% of mainline Protestants, 50% of Muslims and Orthodox Christians. In fact, in my own tradition, we all know of the story of the woman with the issue of blood, a healthcare issue in which the men of her day did not understand. But yet Jesus allowed her access by allowing her to touch the hem of his garment. We will not allow for those who continue to miss the cow for swatting the gnat to continue to restrict the inalienable rights of women all over this state, seeking to protect the unborn, but as hypocrites fail to protect the lives of the living. These same politicians and religious leaders continue to create policies, stand by policies that destroy the lives of children, restricting funding to education, denying access to mothers who need a livable wage, granting unfettered access to guns, restricting affordable housing, over-policing in communities of color, which fuel the mass incarceration and prison industrial complex. So please, we ask you humbly, don't continue in the tradition of being hypocrites. Turn from your evil and wicked ways. Don't restrict our sisters and our daughters' access to healing. Don't restrict them from the metaphorical hem. Allow them to have access to God's garment. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Good morning. My name is Rabbi Solomon Hoffman, and I serve as the Associate Rabbi of Kehillah Synagogue in Chapel Hill, and I am joined by many from my congregation this morning. For me, being a person of faith is not just about what I believe, but how I act in the world. Jewish legal writing, known as halakha, provides guidance about how we act with all aspects of life. And over 2,000 years of this writing and debate, Jewish tradition makes something very clear. Abortion is permitted and even required in certain cases when the health of the pregnant person is at risk. So for Jews, this is also an issue of religious freedom. Since America's founding, religious freedom has been a right that was supposedly enshrined in the Constitution. But today, we face legislation that takes away our right to live out our religious values. Judaism does not believe that life begins at conception. Judaism does not treat abortion as a crime. Judaism does not believe that the health of a pregnant person should be ignored. So when legislation is rooted in religious beliefs that are opposite from our own, we must speak up. I am also here to advocate for reproductive justice because of two fundamental Jewish values. Pikuach nefesh, the value that we preserve life at all cost, and we must recognize that reproductive health care is life-saving in many cases. And B'Tselem Elohim, the belief that each person is created in the image of God and thus deserves inherent dignity. And today we see laws that impinge on the dignity of so many. In closing, I also want to call on other cisgender men to join this movement and to stand behind the women and other people directly affected to join this fight. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is the Reverend Garcia Samson, and I proudly lead the Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry of North Carolina. Today we mark the 51st anniversary of Roe v. Wade, which affirmed that all birthing people had the power and agency over their bodies. But we gather here at a dark moment in our history where bodily autonomy has been replaced with control and criminalization of birthing bodies. We are heartbroken by the tragic impact of the Dobbs decision on people across our country, like the story of Brittany Watts, a 33-year-old black woman in Ohio who was criminally charged for miscarrying at home after being turned away multiple times from a Catholic hospital after she repeatedly was denied care while actively miscarrying. Having no choice, she returned home only to find that the police had been called. This is the thing of nightmares and twisted science fiction, and this is the United States of America in 2024. We need to tell the truth that these conditions are inextricably connected to our nation's dark legacy of controlling and criminalizing bodies. And the legacy of white Christian nationalism, which seeks to wield power and impose their will onto the many. Not only do their so-called values not align with the values of the majority of Christians that they claim to represent, as we have already seen today, but the act of imposing their faith onto a nation as a whole is a grave distortion of the very nature of faith. As a person of faith, I will speak for myself. Thank you very much. I am proud to say that my own Unitarian Universalist tradition affirms that all of our bodies are sacred, and we are each endowed with the twin gifts of agency and conscience. That each of us should have the power to decide what does and does not happen to our bodies, because consent and bodily autonomy are holy. Unitarian Universalists are proud to be a part of this powerful multi-faith movement that will continue to fight to reclaim the sacred right to bodily autonomy for every birthing person. It was the Unitarian minister Theodore Parker who first said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. But let us be clear. It bends towards justice when and if we bend it. And make no mistake, in 2024, people of faith and conscience here in North Carolina and across this country will bend that arc. And we will keep bending it however long it takes until reproductive rights are enshrined as the law of the land once again.
Good morning. My name is Melva Fager Oaken, and I thank you for this opportunity to talk about an issue that is so important to me for my whole adult life. I stand before you as a person of faith, not an ordained minister, but just a person who has been active in my church starting as a child, and then I was a Sunday school teacher when I was in high school, and now I've been a 40-year active member of the Community Church of Chapel Hill, Unitarian Universalists, and many of my brothers and sisters are here today. I also stand before you as a person with a doctorate in public health. I served on the first steering committee and the board that started Planned Parenthood in Orange County. I trust women. What a radical thought. I trust women. For 50 years, women were trusted to make the best possible decision for their fertility, their families, and their futures as guaranteed by Roe versus Wade. In 2020, in the United States, just under 1 million women decided to have an abortion. That's when it was still legal. These women included people of all faiths and all backgrounds. I trust that all of these women made the best possible decision for their lives, their health, and that of their families. I believe that all pregnant people deserve access to quality health care and, if wanted or needed, to legal abortion care. The Dobbs decision tragically undid the legal protection once provided. My faith compelled me and members of the community church to action. This Sunday, immediately following the Dobbs decision, that Sunday we raised $5,000 for the Carolina Abortion Fund, and later in the year raised an additional $5,000 more. We fully support abortion providers and all the services available at their clinics. Shortly after the Dobbs decision, I reached out to other congregations in the Triangle area. Together, we founded the Triangle Interfaith Reproductive Justice Coalition. Let's hear a cheer for everybody here from the... we brought the busload in today, so we're very proud of that. We are the majority of people who stand here as witnesses to this important, historic, religious event. We are people of many faiths. We are joined together along with the majority of North Carolinians in our trust of women. We believe that women should have the right to decide to have a child, to not have a child, and if they choose to have a child, to be able to provide the necessary conditions to raise a healthy child. Government cannot and should not make this decision for women. Those who care about the union of the egg and the sperm don't seem to care about the woman, nor the state's horrific maternal mortality rate, underfunded health care, the lack of affordable housing and daycare, food deserts, and the underfunding of our public schools. My religion is against forced motherhood. My faith and public health background tell me no woman should be legally made to continue an unwanted or life-threatening pregnancy. I repeat, no woman should be legally made to continue an unwanted or life-threatening pregnancy. I will continue to fight for my grandchildren, my granddaughters, and all those between the ages of 10 and 45 years old, that they should have the same right to bodily autonomy as I had for 50 years. That right has been taken away from them. As we all know, abortion bans do not stop abortions. The only thing they stop are safe and legal abortions. I'm fighting, along with all my sisters and brothers back here, for the return of safe and legal abortion health care. Please join me. Thank you so much.
This month in North Carolina, a woman's water breaks. Her fetus is only 16 weeks and cannot survive. Whereas before the fall of Roe versus Wade, she could receive prompt health care. Now individual states are making 50 different sets of laws which only seek to create confusion and distress for patients and doctors. Now in North Carolina, this patient may experience delays in getting the life-saving care that she needs. Arbitrary laws like NC's SB 20 now mandate suffering. Suffering that is an affront to human rights and to my beliefs as a Christian. My name is Reverend Heather Rodriguez, and I'm the lead pastor of Duke Memorial United Methodist Church in Durham. As a pastor and person of faith, I stand firm in my belief that every woman is made in the image of God and deserves accessible and safe health care, as well as the autonomy and dignity to make decisions about her own body. Indeed, the social principles of the United Methodist Church affirm key values regarding women's health care that I espouse every time I stand in the pulpit. Key values like the sacredness of all of God's children, underscoring the importance of women making their own health care decisions. Key Christian values like the nurturing of community, a principle that calls for the support of women in all aspects of their lives, including their reproductive health choices, without judgment or discrimination. Yes, key Christian values, including justice that is social. In the context of reproductive health, this means advocating for policies and access to health care that enable women to make informed choices about their bodies and their futures. Yes, today I stand before you as a United Methodist pastor to reaffirm my commitment to advocating for women's reproductive health and the right to choose as an act of faith.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Jennifer Ingold Asbill. I'm an ordained Cooperative Baptist Fellowship pastor, and I serve in a congregation called Duke Memorial United Methodist Church. And I support all people's access to legal abortion, and I reject any attempts to limit it. I am one of clearly many faith leaders who believe that abortion is a responsible, moral, and faithful choice. Christian beliefs are not universally opposed to abortion, and people need to know that. In my Baptist tradition, we value the freedom of personal beliefs, individual autonomy, and the separation of church and state. Christians who impose their beliefs on others through legislation or any other means violate the civil liberties we all hold sacred. My Christian faith follows the teachings of Jesus, who over and over and over again listened to, respected, and advocated for women, for the marginalized, for the oppressed, and that same Jesus asks me to do the same. As I seek to live and lead faithfully in the world, I cannot help but be committed to equitable access to the full spectrum of comprehensive reproductive health care, including abortion, as a moral and social good. In the spirit of my faith, my commitment to religious liberty, and respect for personal autonomy, I stand for reproductive freedom, comprehensive and medically accurate sex education, equitable access to contraception, and safe legal access to abortion here in North Carolina and beyond. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Rabbi Lucy Dinner from Temple Beth Or in Raleigh, North Carolina. I join today with these interfaith leaders standing for the rights of women to control their own well-being. From my faith tradition in the book of Exodus, we learn of the prime value of the life and health of the pregnant person. Throughout the ages, sacred rabbinic teachings confirm that when a person's life and well-being are threatened by a pregnancy, that protecting the woman takes precedence. While this is the teaching and the ethics of Jewish tradition, my heritage fully recognizes and honors the right of others to choose from their own beliefs and teachings. This issue is critical to all. Whether you realize it or not, almost everyone here has been in contact with a woman who has had an abortion. Studies show that 1 in 4 women who can get pregnant will have an abortion by the age of 40. If you know 12 women in their 40s, 3 of them have probably had an abortion. Doctors are fleeing states where they can't perform abortions, leaving women who want to have a baby with sparse medical care and medical care deserts for all. We say to our legislators and our politicians, take your laws out of our doctors' offices, take your paws off of women's bodies. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Rev Chalice Overy. I'm an ordained minister in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and I serve as the associate pastor at Poland Memorial Baptist Church here in Raleigh. You have heard the stories of how scary things have gotten since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. You have heard how women's lives have been in peril. And the question that resonates with me is, how far does it go? And where does it end? That question resounds in my mind because it was asked by a clergywoman friend of mine and a group of other women, fearful, desperate, as she faced the reality that her daughter is growing up in a nation where she does not have autonomy over her own body. And we wonder, how in the world did we get here? And in a nation that was founded on the separation of church and state, how is it that women and girls' bodies now become subject to the religious convictions of powerful men and their surrogates? And so we wonder, how far will it go? How far can it go? And we really don't have to speculate. As a pastor now, it's interesting. You've heard how in our sacred text that there are many places where the value and the rights of women and the dignity of women are affirmed. We also have many cautionary tales about what happens when women's lives and bodies are placed in the hands of men who do not value their lives in the same way. I remember the story of a little girl who was killed so that her father can keep a frivolous vow in the scriptures, or of a woman who is turned over to a mob to be gang raped so that the men in her life do not have to face that violence themselves, or the woman that Jesus saves from being stoned in the Gospels. Over and over we see that when the bodies of women and girls are handed over to people who want to claim some kind of moral authority, their lives are only made more vulnerable, and the world for them only becomes more terrifying. And so I stand here as a person of faith and a faith leader to use my voice and whatever power I still have, so help me God, at this time to call us to wake up, to call us to see the handwriting on the wall, and to call us to vigorously fight for the life and liberty of women and girls in this state and in our nation. Thank you.
I'm Jennifer Copeland. I'm the Executive Director of the North Carolina Council of Churches. We represent 18 denominations across North Carolina, Christian denominations, 18 across North Carolina, everywhere, rural, urban, suburban, black, white, brown, rich and poor. When I was a newly ordained, still naive and idealistic young pastor from South Carolina, I went to a meeting for a group called Clergy for Choice. This was 1989.
16 years after the U.S. Supreme Court decision legalizing abortion. And we had gathered as a group of faith leaders because our state legislation was pending something that would curtail the federal right. Using the typical channels of public advocacy, we launched a campaign and held the line. Little did I know in 1989 that it would be the beginning of a career-long struggle to hold the line on reproductive rights, a struggle that now has intensified with each passing anniversary and has come to a head with the Dobbs decision. It is now a crisis, my friends, a crisis in North Carolina. In the Christian tradition, there's a clear distinction between what is legal and what is moral. One's morality is a relationship between the individual and that individual's God. The whole point of religious freedom in this nation is that each faithful person makes faith-filled decisions according to her read of Scripture, the traditions of her teachings, the experiences of those near her, the reasoning of her own circumstance. The responsibility of the state is pretty simple. Surround her with the resources she needs for whichever decision she makes. In our current climate, the moral and the legal have changed places. For example, if you work for the state of North Carolina, your health insurance does not cover abortions, nor some other reproductive health items, because we have some so-called religious leaders in North Carolina that don't want their taxes to support such procedures, or even limited options which North Carolinians still have. And so they have elected legislators who passed those laws. They call that freedom of religion. Really? I call it a violation of my freedom to practice my own religion based on the supports of my decision to have an abortion. We now have people imposing their morality on our nation's laws. That's a fundamental shift in the understanding of the freedom of religion guaranteed in our Constitution. We have a situation where a woman who is a person is not valued as a person, while the fetus, which is not a person, is granted personhood status. Make no mistake, this line of thinking is a concerted effort to relegate women to second-class status. At the very least, our increasingly restrictive legislation is returning us to the dark days of a two-tiered abortion system, where those with the means have access and those without don't. What we should finally understand about what is happening right now is that it was never about moral values like truth or fairness or even fidelity. It was never about freedom. It has always been about control. Thank you.
one moment, okay. I want to thank, and I don't, on behalf of everyone, hopefully I'm not stealing the mic from anybody, I want to thank all the members of the press for coming out today for this important event. We need to keep telling these stories, and we recognize that the press are a critical piece of that work, so thank you so much. And we want to ask if there's ever any members of the press here. I'm sure that many, if not all, of the faith leaders who spoke today are available for comment, so please don't be shy. We want to make sure that our voices and the power of this day is heard. We want to continue to tell our stories, and I also want to ask if anybody in the press here today has any questions for any of our speakers.
Are you worried about further rollbacks based off the results of the upcoming election?
Are we worried about further rollbacks as a result?
We're not going to let that happen.
As people of faith, you can see today the power and the determination of people of faith and conscience all across the state, and we recognize how important this year is. It is not only our right, but our moral responsibility to always hold our elected officials accountable to what we feel is right for North Carolina, and we are determined. And as we've heard today, we are pushing people across our state to interrogate the limits of our imagination for what is possible here and what we can create if people of faith and conscience who deeply believe in the right to reproductive justice to organize and to create a North Carolina where all have bodily autonomy. Anybody else want to respond to that question? Any other questions from the press? I see Channel 17 is here. Anybody else? All right, thank you all again for joining us today. Let's kick it off with another song. Let's round it out with one more song. Anybody have a song that We Shall Not Be Moved?
Sorry, I thought you were Josh Schaefer.